Episode 16 of Bleach's 1000-Year Blood War arc anime is easily the most important episode that we have received thus far. Where to begin with this episode, as it features so much anime exclusive material. We had scenes that fans were highly anticipating, along with moments that we didn't even know that we wanted, which Kubo and the animation staff have delivered to us with an exceptional level of care and detail. Episode 16 is titled The Fundamental Virulence, and it's taken after the title of chapter 552 of the manga. This week's episode covers material from chapters 552 to 554 of the manga, which adapts a total of 3 chapters worth of manga material. Now, this should be ringing some alarm bells for you, that a lot of the runtime of this episode has been padded out with anime exclusive material. Episode 16 features several amazing anime only scenes involving new fight scenes with Hisagi, Ikkaku and Yumichika, as well as the highly anticipated Bankai reveal of Shinji Hirako, and last but not least, another mysterious post-credit scene where we catch up with Ichigo in that strange realm that we had learnt more about last week. So definitely make sure you stick around until the end of the video to get my thoughts on all of this and more. So without further delay, here is my comprehensive breakdown of episode 16 of Bleach's 1000-Year Blood War arc anime. Right from the get-go, we're met with an anime-exclusive scene of multiple lieutenants fighting against the Quincy Soldat. It's absolutely insane to me how characters of lieutenant tier are struggling against what are essentially NPCs, but I think that it goes a long way in establishing how much of a real threat that the Soldat are. We also get a small recap of the scene of Hitsugaya getting dunked on by Bazz-B, because for reasons completely unknown to me, we just had to see our little captain get wrecked again. We then cut back to Hisagi running away from what appears to be Soldat who are chasing after him. I cannot stress how crazy it is that characters who had fought against Arrancar Freshion and had defeated them are now struggling with foot soldiers even after growing significantly stronger from that time in the Arrancar arc. This is the perfect showcase of how there is a jump in power levels between Yhwach's Quincy army and Aizen's Arrancar army. We then cut back to Bazz-B getting interrupted by Kangdu, who insists that he be the one to finish off Hitsugaya. After Kangdu takes over, he activates Hitsugaya's Bankai, which looks absolutely amazing. The lighting combining with the visual effects of the ice particles which are flowing off of the wings of his Bankai are just truly breathtaking. Now following this, we get some material from the end of chapter 551, which was also adapted into the end of last week's episode, and it's basically Urahara telling Mayuri that he has found a way to restore the stolen Bankai. This leads us into the intro song nicely, as it gets us caught up to speed with how the last episode had ended, along with some new anime only scenes which had helped to keep things feeling fresh. Now in terms of the pacing of the episode, it adapts 3 chapters of the manga, with chapters 552, 553 and a bit of 554 adapted into the first half of the episode. Now this is before we see the mid-card. This is pretty much everything from Urahara speaking to Mayuri about his shadow infiltration pills, to the captains regaining their Bankai and launching a counter-attack which respectively takes out BG9 and Kangdu. We then cut to Bazz-B from the beginning of chapter 554, where he is disappointed that Kangdu has lost, and then we get a scene of Hitsugaya collapsing on the ground. Now this leaves us with 13.5 pages which are left to adapt the second half of the episode. In terms of plot progression, the first half is flawless, as it for the most part adapts the manga one-to-one with minor inconsequential omissions and small effective additions which were made via anime only lines from Urahara when he was speaking about how the impurity of the Hollow Reishi had ended up deforming Kyuuge Oppi's body. This line of dialogue further emphasizes the fact that hollows are poisonous to Quincy, and this added line in the anime is just proof of how Kubo is painstakingly tweaking the manga material in order to include small bits of context. The second half of the episode is where the real fun kicks in, as we get scenes involving characters who just didn't get enough screen time within the manga. Shinji was the true MVP of this episode with his insane Bankai, Sakashima Yokoshima, which has been expertly adapted from the material that has been included within the Can't Fear Your Own World light novels. It is not a Bankai that can be recklessly used when allies are nearby, hence why we see him use it before he confronts Bambietta, while he is in front of a group of Soldat with nobody else around. His Bankai allows him to invert the perception of friend and foe within the minds of his opponents. This sequence is truly incredible. Everything about it left me feeling speechless, from the flawless animation to Sage Nagisu's absolutely wild new OST which we hear, which was this amazing oriental style remix of an iconic Bleach OST called Battle Ignition. It had me genuinely feeling goosebumps. The tone of the scene is suspenseful, with the right blend of intrigue and mystery, with the music elevating the visuals to another level. The Sold Out are ready to fire at Shinji, but my man is standing there unfazed. The camera pans out from him as it rotates away, which perfectly complements the inverted nature of his powers. I love this scene so much with how it blends CG and 2D. With the amazing art and visual direction, it is easily one of my favorite scenes from the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, and honestly I'm going to be watching it many more times to come. Shinji's character was done a great deal of justice here, and I have to offer a huge round of applause to Kubo and the anime staff for not only delivering here, but going above and beyond what any of us could have expected. In addition to this, we had received some really cool scenes of Ikkaku, Yumichika and Hisagi interacting before they are ambushed by Mask, who really has a bad habit of unexpectedly dropping in on people in this super flashy manner. This anime only scene involving these characters is also a very much needed addition to flesh out the role of the three Shinigami who honestly didn't do much within the manga, and it's nice to see Mask partake in another battle too. The pacing of these new scenes is great too, as nothing feels rushed or abruptly squeezed in. These new scenes are placed strategically amongst manga material which is adapted from chapter 554, which is mostly Bambietta complaining about the Bambis ditching her and then being confronted by Komamura and Shinji. Now towards the end of the episode we get an extended fight sequence between Shinji and Bambietta, and in all honesty this is really nice to see, because in the manga Shinji doesn't really do much during this confrontation in comparison to what the anime is doing here. Of course the episode then ends with the Sternritter holy forms being activated as we cut to the outro song. Similar to the trend that's being formed over the last few episodes, we see yet again another post-credit scene with Ichigo. He continues to walk down that path that we saw him on during last week's post-credit scene, but this time he is really struggling with a heaviness and he can hardly take a step forward. While he struggles and pushes forward, he begins to receive memories from the Soul King, as we see this really brief intermittent flashback of an individual holding a sword, the Soul King's limbs being severed, before we see the state of the Soul King now as he is trapped within a crystallized structure. Ichigo is being tested here by having the Soul King's memories and his flashbacks being shown to him, as it seems as though it is elevating his state of being. The more steps that he takes forward, the harder it is for him to resist the heavy feeling which is stopping him from walking forward. You need to realize that he is going through this process in order to become more than just a Shinigami, which is what Ichibei had told him that he needs to do in order to stand a chance against Yhwach. We see Ichigo raise his head at the end of the anime only post-credit scene, and he appears to have 4 additional pupils within his eyes, and this is similar to the Soul King as well as the multiple pupils that are seen within the eyes of Yhwach when he activates the Almighty. I'm going to dive into this scene in more detail during my manga versus anime comparison, which I'm going to be uploading tomorrow, so definitely stay tuned for that. The animation for episode 16 is undeniably a step above that of episode 15. It's quite interesting to note that the anime's animation is on a steady upwards trajectory with each passing episode, and I really hope that this trend continues, as we are in fact inching closer and closer to some of the most hype moments from this core. This episode featured strong drawings as usual, and as several fans have come to expect from Bleach, phenomenally strong art direction, which is the result of the work of the chief animation director Kumiko Takayanagi, as well as the animation director for this episode Kumiko Horikoshi. They maintained the superb visual appeal that Bleach has come to be known for, and that same strength is more than present within this episode, though I do feel that the drawings are a bit of a step down in comparison to what we had in episode 15. But I believe what really certified this episode as a step above the last one was the animation. This episode featured multiple strong cuts of short but dynamic and fluid animation. My personal favorite cut from the episode was Kangdu's downward claw swipe that was even featured within the trailer for Core 2. We also had some lovely effect animation with Kangdu's snake claw and the clash between Hitsugaya's ice and his attack. The whole episode has multiple short but nicely done cuts of animation for pretty much every major part of the episode. This can also be credited to the effects and action animation director for this episode, who is none other than Satoshi Sakai. He is doing a really good job on Core 2 so far, and I cannot wait to see more from him. This episode also gives some love in the animation department to the fight between Ikkaku, Hisagi, Yumichika against Mask the Masculine. Overall, overall, this week we had a fairly well animated episode, and I'm extremely excited for what's in store for us in the coming weeks. Episode 16 focuses on the counterattack of Soifon and Hitsugaya after Urahara appears within the Serete, and along with the help of Mayuri, they return the Shinigami's stolen Bankai. It was amazing to see Urahara play more of a role within the story again, and for the most part, it's all material that's been adapted from the manga, so I do look forward to some anime-only scenes involving his character. Shinji, like I mentioned earlier, was the real MVP of this episode, with a new remix of a classic Bleach OST accompanying his Bankai reveal. It just stole the show for me in all honesty. The additional Shinji scenes are all consistent with the way that his character is written within the manga, with its playful, witty remarks, and it is obvious that these new lines in the anime have been drafted by Kubo himself. I'll say it again, episode 16 is one of the most important episodes that we have received thus far, because it highlights to us how the anime staff are going to be handling episodes which will be adapting a lower count of chapters, and we're going to see a lot of this during the entirety of Core 3 and even more so for Core 4. If you think about it, from the rumors that we have received, we know that Core 2 will adapt all the way up until chapter 610 to 611 at most. This leaves just over 70 chapters of the Bleach manga to be adapted into the last two cores of the series. I'm speculating that this means we're gonna get 35 chapters per core, so roughly 2.5 chapters being adapted into one episode. Now, if these episodes in Core 3 and Core 4 follow the structure of episode 16, then it would mean that at least one half of the episode will feature mostly anime original content. Episode 16 was merely a taste of what is yet to come, as Kubo and the anime staff truly are delivering on their promise to include more and more new material that we have never seen before into the anime. I am super excited for the future of the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime, as things are only going to be getting better from here on out. I've really enjoyed episode 16, the fundamental virulence. There was so much to appreciate within this week's episode, seeing the beautiful animation of Hitsugaya's holified Bankai, to Soifon firing her explosive Bankai, Shinji revealing his Bankai for the first time, the Sternritter's holy forms activating, and not to mention all of the new material including the teasers of the Soul King flashback at the end of the episode. I really cannot wait for episode 17, which we know is going to be titled Heart of Wolf, and it will be focusing on a certain little doggy battling a little Quincy girl. So be sure to stick around to the channel for my thoughts on that next week. As always, I'm going to be back tomorrow with my comprehensive manga versus anime analysis, where I will slow down and focus on all of the differences between the two, discussing what was cut, changed, and added to this week's episode. In the meantime, let me know all of your thoughts on episode 16 of the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime. Did you enjoy the conclusion of the battles between Hitsugaya and Kangdu, as well as Soifon defeating BG9? What did you think about the Bankai reveal of Shinji? Did you enjoy it as much as I clearly did? Also, what are your thoughts about these strange post-credit scenes involving Ichigo's character? It seems like week on week the anime team are drip feeding us new bits of information, as we see Ichigo struggling a lot this week and then being bombarded with all of these memories from the Soul King. Now, I'm going to be breaking down this week's post-credit scene in tomorrow's manga versus anime video, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for that. I cannot wait to read all of your comments on my favorite episode of Core 2 thus far, and lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you tomorrow for my manga versus anime video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.